The Accidental Entrepreneur is brought to you with the help of our sponsor, AWeber, the world's leading small business email marketing and automation service provider. Since 1998, AWeber has helped more than 1 million small businesses and entrepreneurs through its suite of web-based email marketing, automation tools, and education. AWeber, the best option when it comes to marketing your business. The podcast is also brought to you by the Alternative Board. Since 1989, the Alternative Board, or TAB, has been one of the leading peer advisory and business coaching organizations for independent business owners and CEOs across the world. By facilitating peer advisory boards, private one-on-one coaching, and strategic planning services, TAB helps business owners improve their businesses in ways that change their lives. And be sure to connect with our affiliate sponsor, GSM Growth Agency. They're boosting e-commerce businesses to 6 and 7 figures in revenue and cover everything from ads and social media influencers to making your website better. GSM Growth Agency focuses on taking businesses from startup success to bigger success, going above and beyond to make sure growth sticks around. They're all about cool ideas, lasting partnerships, and making your mark in the e-commerce world. And be sure to support the podcast by ordering some logo merchandise from our online store. Listen to all of our sponsors' commercials later in this episode and follow their links in the show notes to learn more about their products and services. All right, welcome back to another show of The Accidental Entrepreneur. I'm Mitch Beinhacker, your host. And again, we got an exciting guest today. So Sam's going to come on, talk about his tech business, which hopefully you'll all be able to get involved with. Not everybody. Sam will explain who can do this and who can't. And if you're listening on your favorite audio directory, leave us a 5-star review whenever you can. If you're watching us on YouTube, be sure to subscribe and hit the like button and all those things, bells and whistles you can ring. So let's get on with today's show.
The information provided in these episodes is for entertainment purposes only. It is not a guarantee of success or to be construed as advice of any kind. You should always seek advice from local licensed professionals before making any decisions.
The dictionary defines an entrepreneur as a person who organizes and manages any enterprise, especially a business, usually with considerable initiative and risk. People often start a business without much choice, perhaps due to a job loss or just being dissatisfied at work, and they come up with an idea they just know can be successful. They become entrepreneurs by accident. That is to say, their success or failure happens by accident, not with intention. My name is Mitch Beinhacker. I'm a corporate attorney and a business advisor. You're listening to The Accidental Entrepreneur, my podcast about how to achieve success on purpose, not by accident. Join me along with our monthly guests, where we share our knowledge and help you get a hold of your business. And now on to today's episode. All right, Sam. So thanks for joining me. I guess we originally met through Podmatch, right? But I don't know if you're on that platform anymore. Just a little housekeeping before we get on. If anybody's listening or they're looking at the website or the hosting site and they see Claim and they want to jump on and see what it is, Sam corrected me, it is claim.co, not claim.com. So be sure, right? Not yet. We need a little bit more in the bank before we grab that, right?
Yeah.
But so if you're looking for it, make sure you don't just put in .com and think you can find Claim, because you won't at this point, right? There's a link in the show notes, but I don't know what people are doing. So I figure we'll cover that. We'll talk about it again later. So Sam, thanks for coming on the show.
Thanks for having
me today. Yeah. So why don't I mentioned before off the mic, why don't you start with telling your story when you were a kid and involved in entrepreneurship and stuff, and then we'll lead up to Claim.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm Sam, very happy to be here. Thanks for having me, Mitch. When I first kind of got my taste of entrepreneurship, I was probably 10 or 11 years old. So think middle school. There were 2 projects that I really kind of sparked my interest. The first was with one of my geekier friends, and I'm a total nerd, so I say that with the utmost respect. He and I started building custom computers. We really had 2 flavors. One sold, better than the other. We built gaming rigs and we built kind of enterprise Intel Xeon computers and
tower machines, right? Where you can put everything
in. Back in the day where, computers were massive.
Right.
Dual core was in vogue. And we would build these computers. We'd then sell them on Craigslist. And, we did everything at our young age of, from incorporating an LLC in Oregon to, branding, marketing, the actual sales process, customer success in our own kind of very micro, but really powerful way.
Mhm.
And, we didn't end up selling that many computers, but when you don't have carrying costs or rent to pay as a 10 or 11-year-old, it was life changing.
Pocket change. Yeah, you get a lot of money's money, right? Yeah.
Exactly. And then, a couple years later, again, kind of caught the bug and realized that there was a niche for, not even a niche, but there was an opportunity as a 11-year-old to start a freelance web design business. So I,
Yeah.
became obsessed with Illustrator and Photoshop and,
Sure.
learned HTML and CSS and kind of
Sure.
all the basics back in the day. And, no one knew, none of my clients knew that they were dealing with an 11-year-old because of the magic of the internet.
Right.
And that was another great business, that small scale in retrospect, but hugely transformative at the time.
Yeah, that's really where you got started with the whole technology, right?
Yeah,
Stuff.
exactly.
All
Yep.
right, cool. So then you go. Did you eventually go off to college? You stopped that business in high
Yeah.
school or something?
Yeah. High school, it lasted through high school. So just a few years, but, gave me some walking around money.
Right.
I invested the time in building a hi-fi speaker setup in my basement. I have a true love for music, and it was, again, in retrospect, kind of a low to mid-fi audiophile setup, but I built some speakers, tinkered, got into electrical engineering. And I think the thread here through all of this is I love learning new technologies.
Hmm.
Um, and, I wish I had more time for that.
Yeah. Right. Absolutely. Well,
Yeah.
you gotta follow the entrepreneurial spirit. I think I did the same thing. I had a bunch of businesses when I was little, middle school, high school. I think sold the last one and then went off to college and then did a little bit of something in college, but not too much until later on. And
Exactly. And
yeah.
for me too, the inspiration was close at hand. My
Right.
dad started a business and ran it for 25 years with his best friend, here in Portland. And so I could always look to him. And, in a way, in retrospect, I could see when, kind of the highs and lows of entrepreneurship were affecting him.
Yeah.
But he was a great role model, and that he never let that kind of bleed into family life. And so that's something I'll take forward as well.
What kind of business did he have, Sam?
He built a real estate business from the ground up here in Portland in the Pacific Northwest.
Like a brokerage business or a development business? Like,
Both a development business and a project management business. And so,
got it.
here in Portland, they did a lot of the mass transit work that's so defined our city. So the light rail system, the Portland streetcar, a lot of the mass transit, and other infrastructure, they would come in on behalf of, various parties and kind of manage the entire project.
Oh, wow. Okay. And he's an engineer. Is that his background, just like you are?
No, he's just a businessman, and he's really, really good at his job. Yeah.
All right. So you said you got an electrical engineering degree when you went to school?
No, I don't have a technical background either. These are all just
end up doing that. Okay.
past passion projects. And, when we talk for a moment about, the latest project, it was important for me to find somebody with the technical skill set. And I think for a lot of entrepreneurs out there, it can be a very lonely journey. And, I was able to find my closest friend in the world who is building with me, and he's the real brains behind the operation.
He's the programmer, pretty
Yep.
much.
Yep.
Yeah, I think a lot of people get involved in industries and they don't, or business ideas or whatever, and they try to do it themselves when they really could use a partner, somebody who doesn't have their skills but has the skills that they don't have. And if they saw that earlier on, they'd probably be more successful.
The ideal is if you find a business partner that their skills and experiences are complementary. I would almost argue that there should be some overlap so that you can both jam on whatever the problems of the day are. For me, I come from a business background, have an MBA, and so does my co-founder, but he also has a master's in engineering and is a computer scientist. So the reason I say that is because, if I'm having a sticky issue, with respect to contracts or a business agreement or fundraising, I can bend his ear and he can help me out too. So he's kind of the dual threat in a way.
He understands it. Sure. All right. So Claim is kind of a new company, right? So what were you doing before that?
Yeah. So after undergrad, where I was not a STEM major, I was a political science major, just to be clear. I went and moved to New York City, which I think is still kind of the early 20-year-old's dream.
Right.
in a
Everyone's
way.
going to tech and finance, right? Work for
Yeah, exactly. And
Goldman
so
in this case. Everybody wants to go to Goldman.
and early 20s is the right time to do it. I would argue. I burned out on it after
They
5
are
years.
a tough environment. Yeah. Yeah. My friends working there and you'd leave at like 6:30. They look at you like, why are you working a half day?
Oh yeah, no, that's lunch hour.
Right.
Um,
Yeah. It was just
I don't want to glamorize like long hours, but
right.
it was long hours.
Yeah, of
Um,
course.
so I worked in finance. I started in investment banking at Goldman Sachs there in New York, and that was kind of the ringer for me. But was able to work on some really interesting deals, and more importantly, built some fantastic relationships and had
Sure.
some great mentors. And
Yeah.
I realized that I didn't want to sit behind an Excel model for most of the day, and so I found a different group within Goldman that was investing Goldman's balance sheet into impact investing opportunities. And so what
Okay.
that meant was we were taking private equity, debt, tax credits, any number of financial instruments, and finding places where we could essentially do good while doing well. And the project that I focused on in New York was the redevelopment of 9 vacant city blocks called Essex Crossing. And we built, with Goldman's private equity, over 1,000 units of affordable housing, mixed use programming, community services, healthcare, retail, et cetera. And in that way, we were able to return, attractive financial returns while dramatically impacting the community in a positive way. And that gave me a lot of energy. But more importantly, for kind of the claim story, is I got to interact with a lot of great entrepreneurs out there, which kind of re-sparked my interest in building something post that experience.
How long were you with Goldman?
In total, about 5 years.
Okay. Okay. But it also probably exposed you to the world of raising capital and, the investment deals and so forth, because I'm sure you did that for claim, right? And
I did. And yeah, while I was at Goldman, I had the opportunity to serve on a board of one of our portfolio companies as kind of an investor. And that gave me another lens through which, one can view entrepreneurship.
right.
In the fundraising process, it is very much storytelling. There's
Right.
some gamesmanship to it. And then it's a function of timing,
Right.
where you are in the market and where investor interest is. And, we're in the midst of a dramatic AI funding boom right now. And claim is not AI.
Right.
So that creates its own set of challenges and opportunities.
Right. No, everybody wants the new shiny object. There's no question about it. AI is nuts. Every time, I think even Riverside now, they do the show notes for you. Everything has gotten, automatic stuff, artificial, think for you, and everybody wants to be the next.
And some of it hits, right? And some of it actually creates value. I would say most of it doesn't when it's bolted onto existing products. And, my reflection on the entrepreneurial journey is if your product doesn't really require AI or it doesn't really meaningfully add to the user experience or the customer value, then
Right.
don't just slap the label on for fundraising, because 1, it's a distraction, and 2, people are going to see right through it.
Yeah, no, there's definitely a lot of products that now have like AI buttons and whatever. And I'm like, well, what do I need that for?
Or, Riverside is the AI ML platform for podcasting. It's like, is it really? Like, is that what we're doing here?
Exactly. Like automatic show notes are fine. I don't need it to like come on the camera and do the podcast for me, like
Not yet. Yeah.
Not yet, right? Exactly. Yeah. Just send your little avatar ahead. We can meet up somewhere and we can be on the beach and they can do the show.
Yeah.
We will be unemployed. All right. But I think that it's a good, background for people, because people get involved in businesses and not every business lends itself to raising outside capital.
Yeah.
But that's a whole nother, world. So when you're kind of comfortable with it and you have connections and you see how it works, it's not as daunting. I mean, I know people that have, tried to raise money for a very long time, and sometimes they get lucky and they hit the right person, and sometimes they don't even know how to get into the industry, because it is a whole industry. But I think this is an interesting conversation, because it's kind of like an anatomy of how you start a business, right? Because you had the business background, you worked for Goldman, and then you came up with this idea, which we'll get into why and how, where it came from, and what you did. And then now it's, developing. You have raised capital. I'm sure you'll raise more. You got people working for you. So maybe we can go back a little bit. You were at Goldman 5 years, you left. Was that specifically to, okay, I'm going to start something myself, or you didn't know what you were going to do?
I knew what I wanted to do. I didn't know exactly what it was at the time yet. So it started to kind of come into clearer focus when I went back to grad school. So I went and did a 3-year program at Harvard between the Kennedy School, which is a public policy
Sure.
program,
Right.
and then HBS. And most of the reason I did that and I left Goldman was to kind of explore this entrepreneurial itch. And as we were talking about earlier, I think it would be very difficult to start a company by yourself. And I had the good fortune of meeting my co-founder now, Tap Stevenson, when we were in undergrad. We were assigned to live together. So the first day of school, I rolled into my room and Tap was there.
He was your first roommate?
First roommate, randomly assigned.
Is that in Oregon? Do you go to school out in Oregon? Or
I went to school out in Connecticut at Yale.
Oh, sure. We've heard of Yale. There's a few people listening.
but like for the 99% of people out there who have had a roommate, it doesn't always work.
No, and 99% of them don't. They don't all end up in tragedy, but sometimes they're not so close. But it's nice when you meet somebody that young and that now it's a good story.
Exactly. And not only did we live together and both of our respective cleanliness patterns worked out, but we ended up living together all of undergrad. We went our separate ways. He went and did the technical stuff after undergrad, and then he was back at grad school at HBS.
Okay.
And so that was
like you're reconnected there.
Exactly. And we lived together again.
Right. And but Kennedy School is, you said, it's like political science, public policy, all that type of stuff. So you were a political science major, did you say, in undergrad? Okay. And then none of this leads itself to like what you're doing, did it?
I would argue there's actually a pretty clear, red line.
Then clarify for me.
Yeah, of course. So for me, I've always had a really keen interest in public policy, in urban development and urban planning. And a lot of that, came from my dad's own experience. He worked for the city before starting his company. And so, and I've interned for city government as well. And so that has always been a keen interest of mine, is the politics and policy realm. Mm-hmm. The Kennedy School experience really clarified for me the economic condition that we currently exist in, how our economy functions, how we participate in our economy, how today it's a rather difficult economic time for a lot of people, and
very difficult.
Frankly, understating it, it is a very difficult time for a lot of people. I mean, the average American family struggles to come up with $400 for an emergency medical expense. So, so the Kennedy School to me actually was crucial in these 3 years of figuring out not only what motivated me in terms of building a company, but how we could actually, build a company that helped people during a difficult economic time. And so it was this joint program between the Kennedy School, which was a policy program, and the MBA at the business school that I actually think leads rather well to what we've built with Clean.
So you were able, it was like a dual degree. You were able to get both?
Yeah.
Oh, nice. Okay. Well, I mean, it does make sense, I guess, now you explain it to me, because people's lack of understanding of the economy and how things work and why they work and what's going on, often they're like, well, why isn't my business working? And they don't realize there's something else at play that they can't see because they don't understand the economics of what's going on in the economy.
Yeah. And for venture funded businesses, for small businesses, too early is the same as being wrong. Timing is everything. And so you have to understand kind of these broader macroeconomic trends and thematics that are going on. For me, it also helped, build my kind of statistics background, and we use a lot of data science and Claim too. And, the Kennedy School was better for me in understanding economics, statistics than kind of the leadership focus of AWS.
Yeah. And it's all data these days, right? My son's an informatics major, came out of Indiana, so he's programming, doing all kinds of stuff. And I've learned
good hands, yeah.
I mean, and I've learned that data just drives everything, even though we don't really realize it, right? All the apps are driven by everything is just a big database.
Yeah.
Communicating with each other. So
totally.
If you hear a lot of background noise, by the way, I apologize. There's some rooms behind me. I don't know if you hear that noise. Okay, so the two of you graduated together. Actually, you graduated what? Undergrad, and then you also connected at the graduate program?
Yeah, correct. So we graduated together in undergrad. In the graduate program, he was a couple years ahead of me. So
because you went to work and then you were different. The timing was different.
The timing was a couple years off. So what happened was he went to work at Microsoft after graduate school in their AI department.
Yeah. The early days of it, right?
Yeah. I mean, it wasn't too recent, but just the scale of change is, orders of magnitude in the
Yeah, these
last 2
companies
years
have
with
been in
LLM.
AI for a long time. The general public didn't really touch our lives as much as it does now,
Exactly.
Yeah.
So he went and did that, and then when we were able to raise some capital, I was able to convince him to jump ship, unlock the golden handcuffs, and start Claim full time with me.
Okay, good. So let's get into that then, because a lot of people listening, I'm a big advocate of, written business plans and, because you're probably as organized as I am. Like, if you come into my office and you move something and blindfold me and bring me back in, I'll know what you moved. I'm just a
Love
little
that.
retentive about that stuff. But yeah, I just, as a matter of fact, no, I don't want to plug me, but I wrote a business book, and it's a lot of the theme of the book is putting things in writing. Right. And if you're raising capital, obviously you have to do that. So when you're coming out of school, did you say, okay, I want to start a business. I'm not sure what that's going to be. And then you started like writing a business plan and figuring it out? Or did you see something that I'd like to know the thought process of how Claim kind of came about? Because
Yeah,
once we explain it to people, I don't think it sounds intuitive, but I don't think I think it's something you have to come to a conclusion about. So.
I think that's right. I think Claim is intuitive but non-obvious.
Right. That's exactly what I was trying to say. I think it is
No,
intuitive, but it's
you
not
said it
obvious.
well.
Right.
Yeah,
Right.
and I wanted to pause for a moment because when you said you wrote your book, and a lot of it is kind of the discipline and the organization of writing things down.
Yeah.
And we also talked about how data pervades everything we're doing these days. One of our investors recently advocated for a narrative-based approach to explaining data and explaining business plans and explaining decisions. And this goes back to Jeff Bezos's Amazon, narratives, Amazon memos that have frankly been a process that's made that company successful in the past couple decades.
Yeah.
And so we put this into practice just recently as a micro example of what you're saying, which is, we dove into the unit economics of our business and, the millions and millions and millions of data points and rows that we have. And it would be just fine to extract bullets of, okay, well, here's what we're learning from the data. But instead, we kind of put that into a narrative format and told a story to our investors in this case about what we are seeing in the data. And the difference between a pure data kind of analysis in the narrative is, we don't have perfect information. So in that narrative, we're applying our own set of hypotheses operating in a limited information environment. And they might be wrong, but at least it helps third parties understand our thought process in a way.
Yeah. Work through the issues. Because I think when you narrate something and you start putting it into words and writing, the shortcomings in the data or the gaps, like you said, it's a limited data set, become evident.
Yep.
As opposed to just giving it to somebody, let them come to their own conclusion. Like, that's not going to help. You're trying to raise money. You're not trying to confuse people. So
exactly.
Yeah, it's an interesting approach that you're doing it. Because, most business owners don't even put anything in writing, Sam. They do business on a handshake. They have contracts and deals with customers that are on texts and, emails, and they think that's a contract, and their partners don't have an operating agreement, or if they do, they got it off the internet and it's terrible. Right. Then they get in a fight over something. They got no dispute resolution, provisions, any way to deal with, let's call them misunderstandings. I'm not saying everybody's out to get each other, so I'm sure even your best friend, you guys have misunderstandings about things, but if you're documenting stuff and you're keeping track of what you're doing, you go back and say, oh yeah, you're right. You did say that. And this is why I disagree and so forth. And that's what keeps relationships going, marital or business wise, right?
Yeah. Look, I mean, a lot of business moves quickly and can be informal, but if you don't have the kind of infrastructure legally or otherwise, go talk to Mitch because he's an attorney.
Right. But it's all gonna pass you eventually, right? I mean, it's all gonna hit you at some point if you're just moving too fast to deal with the formalities. You were in a world that formalities were very important. Gold. Yeah. If you're doing a deal, a lot of paper involved in investment banking deals. There's a reason for that, that they're not
operating agreements are hundreds of pages and makes your eyes glaze over. And part of that is just like, risk aversion. Part of it's the accumulated, stubbing toes of, decades in the legal space. But part of it is to really protect against disputes and create a format in structure for dispute resolution, for example. And, one of the biggest risks to any business, whether it's a small business or a venture-funded business, is partnership disputes.
Big time.
Breakups, like you said, in a business world are as bad, if not worse than, a personal relationship or a marriage. So it is worth the time to set up the infrastructure to operate quickly, but also judiciously, for sure.
Yeah, there's no question about it. And a lot of people say to me, "Oh, I mean, look, if me and Sam break up and it's not going to work, it doesn't matter to me. I mean, I'm just going to have to move on anyway." And I explained to him that's not why you do. I mean, it's one of the reasons why you do it, but you really do it to keep things on track.
Yeah.
Because you have a way to deal with misunderstandings and disagreements and stuff like that. So you don't break up, and the business is successful. So enough of our soapbox. So, all right. So I'd like to know though. Let's talk about the metamorphosis of like Claim. Like, do you remember what how you kind of like said, "Oh, I didn't realize that," and started thinking of the business idea?
It actually goes way back, even before the two kind of like early entrepreneurship experiences I had. And it goes back to maybe the first purchase that I made as a person, the first like participation in our economy.
Okay. Was it like a 4-year-old? But I mean, you can't do it as
maybe a little later. I think I was 6 or 7.
Okay.
And, but the memory, and it's one of the earliest memories I have. I don't remember anything from when I was 4.
Right. Nothing before 5, they say.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Right.
I remember saving up my allowance for a few weeks until I had enough to go down to Vista Spring, which is the restaurant in our neighborhood.
Okay.
And I went with my buddy Max, and we bought Huckleberry milkshakes.
Okay.
And it was such a distinct memory for me, because it was the first time that I felt like I earned something and I could go like decide what I was doing and have this experience with my friend where we both left there on a sugar high.
Yeah, with your own money, right? You feel it's cool.
It was special. Yeah. It was the first time I ever bought something. Yeah.
Yeah. You find some independence as a little kid.
Yeah. So I would say like that was the first spark. And then over time, I've just been kind of trying to build different experiences towards what has become Claim. And so I'd say it's been this kind of like slow motion storm in a way. And obviously, whether it's at Goldman, learning how, venture funded businesses operate,
right.
Or whether it's, my own experience with social media and kind of rejecting social media, obviously at the Kennedy School, understanding the economic condition for so many people. It really became this realization that we can create an incredible, life-changing experience in some cases for young people, for college students.
Mm-hmm.
We also can solve a really critical business need for brands who want to acquire new customers. And so, fast forward to today, Claim's mission is to create easy and affordable memories. And our users are college students, although we will be progressively opening that up to non-college students in the future.
Okay. Right now, that's the test market.
Yeah, exactly. That's the beachhead. And I think in whatever business you're in, it's really helpful to start with a demographic or a type of customer who you can use to test and validate before you expand outwards.
Then right, what your target is. Yep.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so, our users are college students. They're not broke necessarily, but they are in most cases budget constrained.
Yeah.
With student loans. They are discerning with their time, their money. They love, but also have a love-hate relationship with social media, which I very much resonate with. And they want transparency increasingly in a good deal. And so what we do with Claim is we nudge people to discover the world together without the brainwashing of social platforms.
Okay.
We do that by creating new experiences for them and making those experiences financially accessible to them in a time of economic strain.
Mm-hmm.
So, if Claim were to be marketed to me as my 6-year-old self, it would have given me the opportunity to go with my friend to Vista Spring to buy a Huckleberry milkshake when I couldn't afford it. And, back then, Huckleberry milkshake with inflation was not what it would be today, probably $10 today.
Exactly.
And meanwhile, what we're solving for brands is we're giving them the ability to create a transparent, lifelong relationship with new customers, especially at an early age,
right,
and grow with those customers as they are able to become financially secure, financially independent over time, which kind of, unites two sides of our, our economy, our consumers and, the decision to spend versus save or invest, and, brands and likewise their own kind of capital allocation decisions. And so, in short, Mitch, it's something that I wish I would have had when I was younger, is the opportunity to go do things with friends, participate in the economy, experience new brands. And it's gratifying to me to give people those social experiences while solving a very real business need for marketers out there.
Right. Okay. Why don't we do this? Why don't we take a short break? I'll play the little commercials I have, and then we'll come back and we can maybe talk about some of the learning experiences you've had with starting the business and growing the business. And we can get into a lot of things about what it is and how do you get involved if you're listening, if your kid goes to a university, or maybe if you are at a university after that. But maybe we can talk a little bit more about the raw part of running a business, growing a business, raising capital, those kind of things. So let's just take a commercial and then we'll come back and talk about that. Here's a word from our sponsors. Looking to market and grow your business? Or perhaps you're just getting started and want to hit the ground running? AWeber is the best choice for online email marketing and automation of your business. From maintaining a subscriber list to drip campaigns and landing pages, AWeber gives you tools and integrations that make marketing easy and fun. As our partner and sponsor, we use all their tools to promote the podcast and market our law firm. AWeber, the best alternative for online marketing. For over 30 years, the Alternative Board, or TAB, has built a thriving community of forward-thinking CEOs and business owners who want to radically improve their companies. Through unique combinations of one-on-one business coaching, participation in monthly TAB board meetings with other non-competing owners, a suite of strategic tools, and customized strategic planning workshops, TAB membership can deliver greater strength to your business and a better work-life balance for you and your family. All packaged in a streamlined and affordable service that the people at TAB invite you to try risk-free. Are you struggling with managing advertising due to a lack of time or expertise? Perhaps you're facing challenges in scaling ads for your store. Are you feeling lost when strategies have no success? GSM Growth Agency is your reliable partner in overcoming these business challenges. Feel the impact of collaborating with a team dedicated not only to short-term goals, but also to building long-term partnerships and achieving sustained success. Embark on an exciting journey to redefine the possibilities of e-commerce and create a legacy of unparalleled excellence. Take decisive action now. Follow their link in the show notes to receive a complimentary audit of your Shopify store conducted by a GSM expert. Propel your e-commerce game to new heights with GSM Growth Agency. Follow the link in the show notes to learn more about all of our sponsors. And now back to our show. Okay, we are back. All right, Sam. So we were getting into claim in your business. So can we go back a little bit and talk about, how you started the business? Did you start with a business plan and raise money and then call your best friend, or what did you do? And then lessons learned, things you would have done differently, and things you did right, wrong, those types of things.
Sure. So, was living with Tap, my co-founder again. So
right.
The business plan itself actually came within a forcing mechanism of my master's thesis.
Okay.
And my master's thesis essentially was the business plan for Claim. And to your point earlier, there are so many templates online.
Yeah.
The quality ranges, but the core kind of structure remains the same. Hey, what's the problem you're solving?
Right.
How are you solving it? What's the business model look like? How are you going to monetize? How are you going to market? Et cetera.
Right.
And getting all of that down on paper through the forcing mechanism of a master's thesis, which I can't remember how long it was really illuminating because it allowed us to identify the weaknesses.
Yeah.
In our thinking.
Right.
And so, spent several months on that. And that gave us the basis through which we put together a pitch deck and a presentation and went out and raised capital.
Yeah.
If you do want to raise venture, building a strong network in the community, even if it means coffee chats, if it means, hand-to-hand combat of finding someone who can introduce you to someone who can introduce you to a third degree connection.
Right.
It really matters because just the scale of and the number of pitches that investors receive is staggering. And so there has to be a way to cut through the noise.
Yeah. And I don't think at the end of the day, they're investing in you. I've never really seen a terrible business plan in a pitch deck. Like, you got to be a moron to put out a pitch deck that looks terrible. It's always going to look good. It's the question of cutting through the noise. And that's what the equity investor, the angel investor, the venture capitalist's job is, to figure out, well, could this guy, Sam, is he the right kind of person that could pull this off? I like the idea. I like the concept, but could he, they're really just investing in you at that point. So relationships and introductions carries a lot of weight.
Yeah. At the pre-seed stage or the earliest stage in venture, my mental model is it's 50%, maybe 60% on team, and then 30% on market opportunity, and then maybe the last 10 to 20% is the current idea or the
Right.
current product, and the
Yeah.
current product is going to inevitably change.
Yeah, inevitably change. I mean, look, that's why you go through the exercise of writing a really good business plan. You had the affordability of it to be your thesis, so it had to be even more detailed probably than you would normally do.
Yep.
You should. It's working through the idea to know that it does work or it might not work, or what are the roadblocks, or what, because people don't realize that until they're into their business and they're like, oh, I didn't see that wouldn't work, or that marketplace isn't there. Or people don't have any interest in what I think they have an interest in. They don't work through those things. That's why the business plan, people, think it's like a joke, like unless you're raising capital and you're doing all this stuff, you should have a business plan. Everyone should have a business plan because of what you just said. It helps you identify problems, things on the roadmap that you have to be wary of. Or maybe the product, the way you're envisioning it right now, is not going to work for whatever reason. Maybe there's an economic reason. I don't know.
And it's not like you have to see around corners, because that's you can't do that
No.
all the time. But one way that we would approach writing a business plan is to look at it from the perspective of somebody who wanted to invest or somebody who wanted to buy our company.
Yeah.
And when I was at Goldman, we'd write investment memos and we'd have strengths and considerations. And the considerations at the beginning of the memo were the most important thing, because they were essentially the weaknesses in this business plan, what you had to believe in order for this to be successful. And so we pressure tested the business plan that way. We said, hey, if claim fails, why does it fail? We call that a pre-mortem. And regardless of what kind of business you're starting, whether it's a car wash or a venture-backed company, that why did it fail pre-mortem is actually a really interesting exercise.
Yeah, no, there's no question about it. Because look, you and I both know, if you and I start a business, we're going to struggle and we're going to have problems. We're going to need to adjust things. Economics are going to change that have nothing to do with us, like a pandemic or something like that, or things that we did know were coming and we didn't really, pay attention to it. So when you started out, maybe you can better describe what claim is, and then we can say, okay, this is how I started researching this. I went door to door. I talked to people, whatever, to see if if there was a match between the user and the business and it made sense. So explain what Claim exactly is.
Yeah. So Claim is a brand discovery app for Gen Z in particular. And we help them save money, as I mentioned, while finding new brands and having social experiences with their friends.
Okay.
Our college students learn about Claim from their friends on campuses, because we launch in these sort of dense social networks. They sign up by linking their credit cards in the same way that they would link their bank account to Venmo. Every week we do a drop. It's similar to a Nike sneaker drop, or for those of you out there who use Be Real or remember HQ Trivia, the idea is, we create this sort of moment every week, and it happens on the exact same time, creates a lot of hype and anticipation, brings a lot of joy into people's lives. We've been told by our users that the Claim drop is the bright spot in their week, which is cool, but also somewhat sad in some cases.
Troubling.
More on that later.
Right.
And in that drop, they unwrap their brand of the week. And that brand that they are given in this sort of, animation experience is a function of where they have and have not shopped before and where their friends have shopped. And in that way, we can, give you an opportunity to go try a new brand while going with your friends. And that sort of card that you get, the brand that you get every week, actually has cash back associated with it, just like you'd get cash back on, your Chase statement or whatever. But we're essentially taking that as a carrot to give you a chance to go try a brand for the first time. It's probably like, Mitch, if you went into Costco and Kirkland has samples. Essentially, we're building digital free samples in a way. Why that's powerful now, and kind of the big why now for us, is that marketing as we know it, growth marketing, social media, et cetera, is broken. And it's broken, which we see every single day talking to marketers, because the cost to acquire new customers has tripled in the past decade.
Of course.
Multi-touch attribution, which is the industry term for, hey, you saw a billboard, you saw a Super Bowl ad, you saw an Instagram ad, you made a purchase.
Right.
That's an insanely complicated journey to understand where the actual buying intent came from. And then lastly, Google is phasing out cookies, Apple's do not track technology, all these really important privacy considerations. They're making what was once kind of an easier exercise of finding new customers really
Right.
difficult. And so part of the spark at graduate school was, you mentioned door to door. Door to door for me was going door to door of the faculty in a way in marketing, many of whom had cut their teeth in as operators and kind of built the playbook for digital marketing.
Right.
Uh,
Okay.
Understanding and kind of brain dumping with them about these really clear issues. And we came to this realization that there's a huge opportunity here to reinvent marketing and advertising as we know it, because whether it's Google, who kicked off in the early 2000s,
Yeah.
through Facebook, Instagram, now TikTok, um, there has not been a new digital acquisition channel in the past, call it 10 years,
Right.
if not longer.
Yeah.
And people are tired of social media. I never got an Instagram because I think that it's a deleterious loop.
Right.
And for that reason, Claim was born to solve this real market need on the brand side, but bring joy into people's lives, like I experienced when I was 6 years old, and have the sort of accelerant or platform that could really unlock a better college experience.
So if I'm a user at a university, I get a drop. It's kind of like a coupon free giveaway discount at a local whatever store based on the algorithm. I mean, I understand the rough, points of the algorithm where you're basically offering me something that you think I would be interested in that I haven't seen before, that my friends are doing or whatever. Is that what it is? I'm getting like a discount, a giveaway or something?
Yeah, it's a cashback offer, kind of like
Okay.
a first
Like a
time offer.
discount kind of a thing, sort
Yeah,
of.
exactly. I think it's easier to cast it in the light of cashback than a discount,
Okay.
especially in the marketing world. No brand wants to discount, but they have to
Right.
oftentimes. But the way that Claim works, and kind of the beauty of this, and the
Mhm.
reason that we work with really high end brands who don't want to discount, is because you go in, and when you make your first purchase, you're
Okay.
paying full price at the register, or you're
Right.
buying the full price item online. And then afterwards, Claim sends you a cash back. So it's the same motion as, let's say I have 5% on my Citi credit card cash back, right?
Yeah.
I could go buy something at Louis Vuitton, which I have not done, but
Right.
some super high end retailer who would not want to do sales.
Right.
I'm still going to get that cash back through my credit card. It's the same thought here. Whereas a brand, we work with Sweetgreen, which is a nationwide salad
Sure.
fast casual
Yep.
company. And, we're training our customers to go in. They're having the full Sweetgreen experience. They're paying full price. And if and only if they make that first purchase, they get cash back via Venmo from Claim. And so it's isolated from that brand in that way. But at its core, it's a first time offer. The other thing I'll say, though, is that you look out there, and there have been couponing and rewards apps that have been successful,
Sure.
whether it's Rakuten or Drop or otherwise. However, if you look at those user experiences, they feel nickel and dimey. And I don't know, if you go to Chase offers online, I
Right.
really don't care about 10% off or $2 off or whatever. It feels like spam. What we do with Claim in contrast is we create all this hype around the moment. And then when you have your unwrapping experience of a brand,
Okay.
it is focused on the brand and an item. There are no numbers. And it sounds counterintuitive. How could I have cash back without numbers? But what it makes consumers do is think about the emotional experience or the physiological experience. I'm hungry, rather than the kind of quantitative or transactional experience. And, as a consumer, then I'm much more likely to go try that place for the first time. By the way, you can trade these cards with friends, which creates its own social experience. But
Okay.
um,
It's
in that way,
right.
it's free samples on the internet, but it creates this sort of high quality aspirational experience, which is really important to us.
Now let me ask you what's the word? Like a marketing target, a target demographic question, right? Because you brought up an issue about the business and its core functioning is to create relationships between the business
Yeah,
and a customer, right? But you're in a transient environment, right? So my kid goes to, we mentioned University of Maryland, and it's at University of Maryland, pretty popular there. But she's only there for 4 years and then she leaves. So is the idea like, okay, well, if this person is loyal to this brand, a lot of them are local, I guess, they're not all national brands. Are they going to continue to be loyal and interested in the brand if it exists where they go next?
That's certainly the hope. So we work with Fortune 500 brands down through local small businesses. So,
Okay.
take Sweetgreen, for example. Sweetgreen's all over the country. So part of the thesis here is we're starting by deeply understanding this college student demographic.
Hmm.
They are then going to either move back home or move back to the usual suspects around the United States, New York, LA, you know, Seattle,
Yeah,
whatever.
the major city.
And so if we grow with them, with the brand relationships that we've helped them create, but also as they are getting more buying power, they are becoming more financially stable. We can continue to be this sort of shopping companion for them over time as they integrate into new markets. And let's say I was moving to New York after college. I would have loved if, knowing very little about the city, I could have tried a few restaurants or tried a few brands when I moved there that Claim knew I would have liked, the algorithm knew I would have liked um, early on. So we think it's a discovery tool for people that are transient, but also moving into the next phase of their lives as well. And one of the things we did this summer to start experimenting with that is we allow you to set your location. So summer, most students are off.
Right.
We allow you to choose a city. I'm going to be in LA. Great. You're going to get the LA experience. You'll get, e-commerce brands associated with Los Angeles, et cetera. One thing I wanted to say maybe as a framing for any folks that are interested in marketing is right now, if I have a marketing budget as a marketer,
Okay.
I'm plowing that money into what we talked about earlier, Facebook, Instagram, et cetera. Instead, what Claim is doing is taking that advertising budget, which would otherwise go to try to grab your eyeballs while
Right.
you're on Instagram, and we're passing that advertising budget directly to the consumer via low price. And
Makes
that's a
sense.
better experience for the consumer because they're getting to have the full product experience. They're not getting their, day interrupted on
Right.
Instagram in a sponsored post. It also ends up being more authentic and more cost effective for the brand.
And the drop is all based on the algorithm. So it's not like you're having a drop of one store at a university and every kid seeing it. It's different for every user.
The personalization really matters.
Yeah. Now, so I know you're doing it at a university. So what happens when I graduate and I want to be still a Claim user? Do I get to stay on or I get bumped off?
No, you don't get bumped. It's important for us to stay with you for many reasons, not the
Right.
least of which is experimenting with the next stage of what a young adult, looks like and really prioritizes. So, a quarter of our users, all of our graduating seniors, have either graduated in the last 2 weeks or will graduate in the next 2 weeks. And we don't want them to leave Claim, and we're excited that our retention charts show that they don't. So we're growing with them.
And you're still within the first 4 years of the business, right? So you haven't had any graduating classes yet.
Well, we've had 2 graduating classes, last spring and then this spring,
Got it.
as well. But yeah, we're early in the life cycle of this business. We're a little over 2.5 years in.
Okay. And let's go back to some, because we got a lot of people listening who are, small business owners and they're looking for advice and things. So what would some of the things you say looking back that you did wrong, you had to course correct a little bit in terms of, I don't know, getting started or running or whatever? And what are the challenges you think about this kind of an entrepreneurial business?
Yeah, I would say understanding the type and scale of business that you're trying to build. I think everyone has really grand ambitions, and but not every business is suited to venture funding. And there
Right.
are, I would say that the vast majority of businesses would be better off without it. It is very much a strategic choice that you can make, but
Yeah.
if you bootstrap, if you raise small friends and family capital, angel, et cetera, you end up owning a lot more of the business, and your destiny is oftentimes much more in your control. And so
Okay.
for us,
Good advice.
it was a very, I would say, strategic decision for us to raise venture because we realized if we're going to go attack all of advertising, this thing's either going to be massive and requires venture funding to scale,
Right.
or it is going to fail.
Yeah.
And so that was a very important point for us. The timing of when to raise funding, regardless of the source,
Mm-hmm.
I feel like is a decision that, in retrospect, we might have changed the timing, right? I think people are like, oh, I have a business plan. Let me just go raise money right away. And
Right.
certainly
Ready
if
to
the capital
deploy it.
market,
Right.
yeah, if the capital markets, permit that, and that's great, like go do it 10 out of 10 times. But most of the time, my perspective is you should wait until you need that capital to scale, to put to work.
Right.
because that gives you the discipline to figure out with kind of scarce means and resources the strengths and weaknesses of your business.
Yeah. And
I
you're
think
going
we
to get
would have
that question. You're going to get that question from the investor. What are you going to do with my money?
Yeah.
How are you deploying it? Well, when we do this, we're going to, okay, well, I'm not going to put $10 million in the bank for you then and lock up my capital.
Yep.
You get it over time. What other challenges have you found with running this type of business?
Maybe the single most important thing we would have done differently is we would have stayed more relentlessly focused.
Okay.
And when you're building a business from scratch, again, doesn't matter what kind of business it is, you could allocate your time in a trillion different ways.
Yeah.
And you could go run after shiny objects. You could go run after what you think are really interesting opportunities.
Yeah.
And I think that's honestly some of the most stressful parts of being an entrepreneur is envisioning all the permutations of where you could be focused right now.
Right.
And for us, early on, we were trying to do way too much. We were trying to build a new consumer experience. We were trying to build, something to replace Facebook.
Right.
And we were trying to do it all on the blockchain, which is a whole separate, discussion that we can have at a later date or never. Super interesting, by the way. But those were three like massive things on their own that could have occupied 110% of our time.
Yeah.
And so the mistake we made was trying to do too much at the same time. And there's this framework that a lot of us use. You hear it in different ways, but what's the one job to be done? The job to be done framework, or what's the only thing that matters, which is kind of the more colloquial version of that.
Yeah.
And the only thing that mattered to us was like, and it can change over time, but I would say rather than operating in parallel, rather than trying to spend 110% of our time building the consumer experience and the other 110% of our time
exactly
building,
you spend 330% of your time doing three things. You're spread so thin, you're getting nowhere.
The math doesn't math, right?
Yeah, doesn't matter.
And so for us, like operating in series or in sequence rather than in parallel would have saved us a lot of time and distraction. And when I can go to our team, during our all hands and say, hey, the only thing that matters this week is X. That is so focusing for our team. And it's a muscle that we've been building recently. And we did not have for the first, call it year to year and a half of the company.
Yeah. You would say that's something you learn from experience, or somebody shoves it down your throat and said, hey, don't make this mistake, like you just said.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I think focus is, look, it gets back to, like you said, the exercise of having things in writing and being organized and do that kind of stuff. Because there's a lot of distractions in business. It happens daily, hourly, by the minute, by the week. It's one of the most difficult part about being successful is saying, okay, this is what we want to do over the next 6 months. And these are what we have to do each week and month. And, let's try to avoid as many fires as we can. They happen. But that's good advice, because
we try to plan on a 90-day horizon, because at least for our type of business, seeing beyond 90 days, like for investors, we'll paint the vision. Like, why is this going to be a massive company?
Right.
But I can't tell you what's going to exist and where our financials are going to be a year from now.
Right.
I can tell you where they're going to be 90 days from now, and I can give you projections. But it's difficult to plan on that horizon.
Yeah. No, I think people definitely look too far down the road. They have this grand ambition, which is great, right? You need a giant goal, but you don't break it down into pieces to get there.
Yep.
Because maybe it's, my father used to say, don't eat an elephant in a day. You got to do it.
My dad used to say, don't paint all the fire hydrants on the first day. So.
Yeah, it's the same thing. Exactly. Same expression, different part of the country.
Yeah,
is what it happens to. All right. So Sam, let's talk about, because we're coming up on 55 minutes or something. Let's talk about if I want to learn more about Claim. First of all, if I'm at a university, it's not at every university, right? So right now, where's it rolled out to generally?
Yeah, so we support about 50 colleges and universities in the country.
Okay.
There are 3,000 colleges and universities in the country.
Yeah.
And so the main campuses that we're launched at are places like where your daughter is at University of Maryland, University of Southern California, UCLA, Michigan, UT Austin, Ohio State, UW, bigger campuses.
Yeah.
We got our start at Harvard, so that's, we have some small campuses as well. But we're expanding usually every week. So if you go to our website, claim.co, you can see where Claim currently exists. You can join the waitlist, so you'll be the first to know. You can also cast a vote for your school being the place to launch next. And then honestly,
okay.
Shoot me a text, 617-420-5228.
Okay.
And we can get you on the platform.
Okay, great. So we'll put links in the show notes to claim.co, not com. And I assume you're on LinkedIn too, right? And all the other stuff. So
yeah, LinkedIn / Sam Obelix.
Not Instagram. You're not on Instagram, so
not on Instagram.
Don't
Claim is though. You can find Claim on Instagram. It's an important part of our storytelling, right? This is another, I think, transferable lesson for us is, who you're building for. You're not exactly who you're building for. If I was going to look at a company, I would go to the website and I would go to LinkedIn. When our users, our students, look at Claim and decide whether or not it's legit,
they're not going to LinkedIn.
They're going to Instagram and TikTok.
Right. Exactly. That's exactly what they're doing. So just because you don't like it doesn't mean all your potential customers don't, right?
That's right.
Yeah, you got to find where they are. All right, Sam, I can't thank you enough for spending some time with me. I don't remember, what part of the country are you in right now?
Pacific Northwest. I live in Portland.
Okay, so I appreciate it. It's early there. So let's stay in touch. I want to see Claim grow as it goes from university to university. And I'll tell my daughter to get on the platform.
That sounds great, Mitch. Thanks for having me.
All right. Thanks, Sam. Thank you for listening to this episode of The Accidental Entrepreneur. Opening and closing music written and performed by Howie Moskovich and made to order music. For information about Howie and his music services, please follow the link in our show notes. If you like the podcast, please tell others about us. You can find us on Apple Podcasts, on Amazon Music, Spotify, Google Podcasts, and most of the other podcast directories. If you like what you hear, please leave us a 5-star review and feel free to share our episodes on social media. If you have any questions or comments, ideas for the show, or you'd even like to appear as a guest, reach out to us by email at info@beinhackerlaw.com.
The Accidental Entrepreneur is hosted by Mitch Beinhacker and produced by Beinhacker Law. If you'd like to learn more about our business and legal services, you can find us on social media or visit our website at beinhackerlaw.com. Thanks for listening, and be sure to subscribe to our feed to be notified of all future episodes.